Year 9, the task this week looks at how a writer structures the text to interest you as a reader. Structure can feel a little bit daunting, but it basically means how a text is put together, how it is organised and sequenced by the writer, all of which are deliberate decisions. We have looked at structure in lessons with both The Great Gatsby and Hound of the Baskervilles, so it would really help if you have your exercise books with you when you're completing the tasks, and use those paragraphs we wrote in lesson to help you to write your responses today. But don't worry if you don't have your exercise book, because I'm going to take you through it step by step. So the extract that we're going to look at is from Erin Morgenstern's novel, The Night Circus. And it's important that we read and look at the whole of the extract because it's a structure question and not just the first paragraph. So let's have a look at the first task. So it says for us to read the extract, and it gives us a clue as to what the extract is going to be about. So it says, read the extract from the novel, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. In the extract, a circus mysteriously arrives in the middle of the night. Now, to the right of this, you can see that there is a glossary. So if there is a word in the extract that you don't know, you could look here and it will give you the meaning. So the first thing we're going to do then is we are going to read the extract together. The Night Circus. The circus arrives without warning. No announcements precede it, no paper notices on downtown posts and billboards, no mentions or advertisements in local newspapers. It is simply there, when yesterday it was not. The towering tents are striped in white and black, no golds and crimsons to be seen, no colour at all, save for the neighbouring trees and the grass of the surrounding fields. Black and white stripes on grey sky, countless tents of varying shapes and sizes, with an elaborate wrought iron fence encasing them in a colourless world. Even what little ground is visible from outside is black or white, painted or powdered, or treated with some other circus trick. But it is not open for business, not just yet. Within hours, everyone in town has heard about it. By afternoon, the news has spread several towns over. Word of mouth is a more effective method of advertisement than typeset words and exclamation points on paper pamphlets or posters. It is impressive and unusual news. The sudden appearance of a mysterious circus. People marvel at the staggering height of the tallest tents. They stare at the clock that sits just inside the gate that no one can properly describe. And the black sign painted in white letters that hangs upon the gates, the one that reads, opens at nightfall, closes at dawn. What kind of circus is only open at night? People ask. No one has a proper answer. Yet as dusk approaches, there is a substantial crowd of spectators gathering outside the gates. You are amongst them, of course. Your curiosity got the better of you, as curiosity is wont to do. You stand in the fading light, the scarf around your neck pulled up against the chilly evening breeze, waiting to see for yourself exactly what kind of circus only opens once the sun sets. The ticket booth, clearly visible behind the gates, is closed and barred. The tents are still, save for when they ripple ever so slightly in the wind. The only movement within the circus is the clock that ticks by the passing minutes, if such a wonder of sculpture can even be called a clock. The circus looks abandoned and empty, but you think perhaps you can smell caramel wafting through the evening breeze beneath the crisp scent of the autumn leaves, a subtle sweetness at the edges of the cold. The sun disappears completely beyond the horizon, and the remaining luminosity shifts from dusk to twilight. The people around you are growing restless from waiting, a sea of shuffling feet murmuring about abandoning the endeavour in search of some place warmer to pass the evening. You yourself are departing when it happens. First, there is a popping sound. It is barely audible over the wind and conversation, a soft noise like a kettle about to boil for tea. Then comes the light. All over the tents, small lights begin to flicker, as though the entirety of the circus is covered in particularly bright fireflies. The waiting crowd quiets as it watches this display of illumination. Someone near you gasps. A small child claps his hands with glee at the sight. When the tents are all aglow, sparkling against the night sky, the sign appears. At first, it is only a random pattern of lights, but as more of them ignite, it becomes clear that they are aligned in scripted letters. First, a C is distinguishable, followed by more letters. A Q, oddly, and several E's. When the final bulb pops alight and the smoke and sparks dissipate, it is finally legible. This elaborate incandescent sign leaning to your left to gain a better view, you can see that it reads Le Circus Arrives. Some in the crowd smile knowingly, while others frown and look questioningly at their neighbours. A child near you tugs on her mother's sleeve, begging to know what it says. The Circus of Dreams, comes the reply. The girl smiles delightedly. Then the iron gates shudder and unlock, seemingly by their own volition. They swing outward, inviting the crowd inside. Now the circus is open. Now you may enter. Okay, so now we've read through the extract, we want to look at what we need to do with the information that we've just read. You may want to pause the video and read the extract through again. We know that the more that we read through the text, the easier it is going to be to understand. Okay, so this task is asking us to read the first part of the extract from the opening to the end of the paragraph, some other circus trick. It's really important to stop at this point in the text. If we choose an example after this word, our answer may be incorrect and we won't get the marks. The question is asking us to list 4 things that can be seen in and around the circus. So this will help us to stay focused on what we are looking for in the first 3 paragraphs. We're going to just highlight this section here just to help us. So to list 4 things that can be seen in and around the circus. So let's read the first sections again. Okay. The circus arrives without warning. No announcements precede it, no paper notices on downtown posts and billboards, no mentions or advertisements in local newspapers. It is simply there, when yesterday it was not. The towering tents are striped in white and black, no golds and crimsons to be seen, no colour at all, save for the neighbouring trees and the grass of the surrounding fields. Black and white stripes on grey sky, countless tents of varying shapes and sizes, with an elaborate wrought iron fence encasing them in a colourless world. Even what little ground is visible from outside is black or white, painted or powdered, or treated with some other circus trick. Okay. So we can see then that the information that we are looking for is mainly in this 3rd paragraph here. So let's select 4 things we can see around the circus from this paragraph. So we can see that there are towering tents and that these tents are black and white. So what you can do is to pause the video now, and I want you to find 3 more things that you can see in and around the circus from this paragraph. We need to remember to write in full sentences. So because I've picked out the towering tents, you would write, there is a towering tent. And my next example was the white and black. So we would write, there is a black and white tent. We're now going to look at the whole text. So we move on to the next question. We can see a support box here on your task sheet, and this is going to help to remind us what structure is about. So it is about how the text is shaped, and this basically means how it is organised. The text is organised into paragraphs, and the writer is moving us and guiding the reader, us, through the story as we go through each of those paragraphs. Now, the easiest way to do this is to break the text into 4 sections, and this support box is going to show you and help you to do that. So let's look at the first one then, establishing event. You always start at the beginning. This is where the writer establishes what is happening in the text. It might be that the writer begins with the setting or the atmosphere. They might introduce the character. They might establish the event. And you need to identify which one of these things the writer is using in the opening paragraphs, and to identify and explain why. It's really important, the why it is being established in the beginning. Why is this important to the reader's understanding? And why is it starting to build and interest the reader? How is it going to engage them? So establishing the event. We're then going to look at how the writer develops the text. What happens next? So this is where the shift could happen. So there'll be a shift that moves the story forwards. It might come in the next paragraph after the first paragraph, or it might come a little bit further down, maybe in the third or fourth paragraphs, perhaps. This shift could be where the writer zooms in on a particular detail of the text, or they might be zooming out. So there's two keywords there, zoom in and zoom out, to create a sense of a particular detail. If they're zooming out, it might create a sense of a larger landscape or the whole setting. And the writer will guide us to this new information. And we need to think about what we're learning here, how this helps us to understand what has just happened in the beginning. And also it makes us start to think about what could happen next. The third stage then is another shift. This might be a significant shift onto something completely different, or it might be another subtle shift. So we might zoom in on something again, looking at exploring something in more detail, or again, it might be zooming out. So here we want to think about how the writer is building on what we already know. How does this narrative move us forward again? It might be that the writer has included a flashback or a foreshadowing. And these are some of the key terminology you can start to use when we are writing about structure. There might be an example of these in the text, but not always. So we're thinking about, why might the writer use an example of a flashback or a foreshadowing? Why is it there? Why has the writer chosen to include it in that particular paragraph? Now, there isn't a flashback in the extract we're looking at today, but I want you to start thinking about the different ways that the writer is making deliberate choices in their writing and how those choices affect the reader's experiences. Now, the last one is finally the ending. So when you get to the end of a text, you'll need to write about how the text finishes and start to think about how it has changed since the opening section. How does the opening and the ending link together, perhaps? And here you can start to look for any examples of juxtaposition. Now, juxtaposition means contrast. So we're looking for examples of contrast between the characters, their experiences, or the situations. So when you go back and look at the text, see if you can spot any examples of juxtaposition. So now we've looked at and talked about what structure is. And again, you might want to pause the video here and just read through that support box again before we move forwards. Let's look at the next task. Okay. Now, we want to really think about those deliberate choices that Morgenstern has made to structure the extract from Night Circus. So put together some questions that are going to help you to look at the beginning, where we can see those shifts, and what happens at the end. Now, we know that Morgenstern is a writer, and it's really important to talk about the writer, identifying them by name and referring to them using their surname, so Morgenstern, because this helps to show that you have an understanding that the text is a construction and that the writer has made these choices deliberately, that there is a reason. Okay, so let's use these questions to help us to go through the text. So we're going to do the first two together, and then I would like you to have a go at doing the next three by yourselves, making notes either on your piece of paper, on your laptop, on the extract, And then that's going to help you when it comes to writing the analysis in a moment. Okay, so the first question is, what happens right at the beginning? So this is your establishing. What is being established? Is there a character? Is there a setting? Is there an atmosphere? And we want to think about, why is that interesting to us as a reader? Okay, so let's go back up to the beginning. The circus arrives without warning. Now, this is the very first bit of information that the writer wants us to know. At this point, we know the circus has arrived, unannounced. It wasn't expected. And therefore, the focus of the text is going to be on the circus. And what Morgenstern wants us to be aware of is that the circus is important. She goes on to explain in the second paragraph, no announcements precede it, no paper notices on downtown posts and billboards, no mentions or advertisements in local newspapers. It is simply there when yesterday it was not. So this sentence is adding to our initial surprise. So we're going to start to think about what Morgenstern's decisions were here. It's establishing a sense of mystery around the circus. We're drawn in by this strange and unexpected event. And it's strange that there's no characters mentioned at this point. And again, this is all adding to the level of mystery. So this is what your notes would look like. It doesn't need to be in full sentences, but we're starting to make some notes about the rationale, the reasons why Morgenstern started with the circus arrives without warning. The next question then, question 2, asks us, what happens next? Does the writer shift the focus? So let's look at the third paragraph, and we're looking for, is there a shift in focus? The towering tents are striped in white and black, no golds and crimsons to be seen, no colour at all, save for the neighbouring trees and the grasses of surrounding fields. Black and white stripes on grey sky, countless tents of varying shapes and sizes, with an elaborate wrought iron fence encasing them in a colourless world. Even what little ground is visible from outside is black or white, painted or powdered, or treated with some other circus trick. But it is not open for business, not just yet. So here we can see that Morgenstern is building on the detail, her description of the tent, but there's no real shift just yet. So we're going to move on to the next paragraph here. Within hours, everyone in town has heard about it. By afternoon, the news has spread several towns over. Word of mouth is a more effective method of advertisement than typeset words and exclamation points on paper pamphlets or posters. It is impressive and unusual news. The sudden appearance of a mysterious circle. People marvel at the staggering height of the tallest tents. They stare at the clock that sits just inside the gates that no one can properly describe. So here, is there a shift in focus? Yes. We can see that the writer shifts the focus from the tent to focus on the people in the town. And here we learn the news of the circus is travelling fast, and there is a sense of anticipation and excitement. We can see that the people are marvelling at the staggering height. Okay, so our notes here would be that the town people are impressed by the size of the circus tent. And the effect of this then is that it's making us think and question how something so large could materialise so quickly and so suddenly. Morgenstern here, by shifting the focus to the people, it's creating intrigue. We are connecting with the people, and it's piquing our interest. What I want you to do now then is to use the rest of the questions to help you to make notes on the rest of the text, like I've done here. making sure you're picking out some examples to use in your explanations. So stop the video and complete the rest of the questions now. Okay. The final task then, the structure analysis, is asking you to bring all of your notes together to answer the question, how does the writer use structure to interest you, reader? Now, this is a similar question to the ones that we've looked at in lesson. And basically, all it's asking you to do is to turn all of those notes that you've just made about the extract into full sentences and to add in a quote to support what you've written. So I've written an example here for you to get you started. At the beginning of the extract, the writer establishes the scene when we are told the circus arrives without warning. This is immediately engaging because it sounds strange and unexpected, and the writer appears to be centering the circus as an important setting for the story where surprising events will take place. So our keywords here are the writer establishes, and then we have our quote in here that's helping us to understand what the writer has done. And then we're thinking about what it's doing. So it's engaging us, and what the writer is doing appears to be setting the circus as important. Now, underneath this example, I've given you some sentence openers to help you to write the next 2 to 3 paragraphs. So taking it step by step. So we're going to look next at how the writer shifts that focus. Is there another shift, and what does it do? So in this case, does it build on the excitement that we talked about? What happens at the end of the text? What links can you make between the beginning and the ending? Have you spotted an example of juxtaposition? I've also listed the key words that we've been talking about: establishes, shifts, juxtaposition, foreshadowing, flashback, zoom in and out. You'll notice that we're not talking about the use of adjectives, similes, metaphors. We want to start getting used to using some of the key structural terminology when answering this question. Okay. That's it from me, but if you have any more questions or you're not sure on something, then watch the video again or email your teachers and ask them for some support. Thank you.